Serpent engineer Billy Easton here, former two-wheel drive world champion and now designer of the brand new SRX8 Buggy. And tell us a little bit about this whole project.
This project kind of came about. We've had our other platform for about 5 years or more now, and over the last 5 years, we've got a lot of customer complaints, a lot of customer suggestions, and not only those things, but you've learned a lot along the way. You know, every time we went to a race, we learned something, and then when you finally get around to being able to make a new car, it's like you want to try to incorporate everything that you've learned over the last 5 years to hopefully build a better platform, which I think we've done.
I believe you said there's like 80 to 85% new parts on this car?
Yeah, this car is basically, like I said, over 80% new. The only thing that really carries over is the clutch carries over, the air filter foam and the housing carries over, the shock caps carry over, and just about everything else is brand new. So not many parts are left.
Well, let's rip that body off here and check out what's going on. This will be the first time I think a lot of people get to see what's going on in the hood.
Well, this is a new body, and then we'll also have another body which is completely different in aerodynamics. So the customer will have a choice between this body and then what we consider a high downforce body.
How big of a change did you guys notice running and testing different bodies and changing the downforce?
We didn't get to do as much testing with the bodies as we wanted, but on the other body we incorporated like a rail system to trap more air on the top of the foil of the body. And the cab is a little bit different shape. It's a little more blocky. Trap more air. It's just less aerodynamic on the top. It's pinning a bunch of air more to the front and holding a lot of air on the side. So, I mean, it does make a difference.
Awesome. And then on the chassis here, we see we've got carbon fiber shock towers front and rear, and then a whole lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I mean, basically, we went to a more conventional brake system. We had something that was a little bit different, but in the end, the average user was having a difficult time trying to adjust it on the fly. You know, you don't adjust your brakes all the time on the fly, but people want to be able to do that on the fly. So we changed the way the entire braking mechanism was, so we had to make a lot of new parts. And in doing that, we also had to make a new radio box, which changes the weight distribution, but also allows us to reconfigure the entire radio box assembly. And so that part there was, you know, that's one of the main complaints that we had. We want to be able to access the battery without taking anything else off. This is a big issue in Europe where they can't charge the battery in the car. So they want to be able to get the battery in and out without any issues. They want to be able to adjust their brakes without any issues. And so those things have all been kind of handled with that. And then we have our new steering system, which we have a new bell crank and a new steering rack, a steering crossbar across there, and then that we actually tested a lot on the old car to see how people liked the way it responded, the arc of progression, the way the Ackerman actually from start to finish. So that the other racers like, so that we incorporated into this one. And then, I mean, we have a lot of new things, but we widened the chassis. A lot of people wanted a wider chassis because they felt it was more stable. The old one was much more narrow. And this one, they went, we want a more wide chassis. That we think it's more stable in the bumps and so on. So, okay, well, all right. If you really believe that's better, we'll give it a test and see what happens. So we ended up finding it works pretty good. And then we changed the entire way you adjust the gear mesh. You know, nowadays people want easy. They don't want difficult. I want to be able to maintenance it faster, change something faster. I want it to practically put itself together if it can. So the way we did it was we redesigned all the clutch bells and all the spur gear. So basically they're all on the same pitch circle. So a 13 is on the same pitch circle as a 14. A 46 is on the same as a 47 or a 48. So that means your center-to-center distances are always the same. And then basically, so you can fix your motor into position, and then you can fix the center diff into position. But these, we have some different plates that shift the diff like a very, very small amount, so that way you can fine-tune the mesh like really simply. With, you know, if it seems a little tight with your engine, then you just go from say we have they're done in letters, so it's A, B, C, D, and E. So if you had a C, which comes in the kit, and you want it to be less, you just go to a B or whatever. Or if you want it tighter, you go to a C. So it makes it really simple. You're not fiddling around, torquing with it, and tightening a screw and wedging it one way. You're not doing that anymore. Now it's, you know, pin it in and put it together, and it's the same every time. Repeatability is like 100%. So once you have your engine and once you know what gearing you use, you always know exactly what you use, and you put it together exactly the same every time. So all the guesswork's gone.
We see here on the rear of the shock tower, looks like you got a skid plate.
Yeah, a lot of customers, you know, there's a lot of aftermarket companies were making like, you know, a skid plate that fixed to the top of the chassis, and then there's a couple other brands out there that actually incorporated a steel plate into the chassis. And a lot of the customers really liked the fact that you could prolong the life of the chassis by, just putting a metal plate on the chassis, and it does make a difference. It does, it does prolong. If you want to save your wallet, it makes a big difference in, not having to replace your chassis, more often. Now you can go between, longer between times of actually having to maintenance the chassis. So it does help. Another, helpful thing that customers wanted, and it's on this car for them to, utilize.
We see the arms. You got some carbon fiber arm stiffeners on the front. The rear arms, the webbing still has all the material intact.
Yeah, basically you can put, the car comes with plastic plates that you'll be able to put on the top and the bottom if you choose. Now I'm not running them on the back. I mean, I didn't test it yet here, so I don't know. I didn't get to that. But on the front I'm running the carbon fiber plate on the top and the bottom. And in the rear I'm not running any plates at all. But you can buy the carbon fiber plates separate. So you can basically do all sorts of different things. You could run a plastic one on the top, a carbon one on the bottom, or whatever. Or mix and match, or none at all, or only one if you wanted. So now that the customer has an unlimited amount of things he can do, if he, and it makes a difference. I mean, if the arm flexes a little bit more, it makes the car a little bit more forgiving in the bumps. But when you come to a higher grip track, if you want to increase the responsiveness, you can just play with that. You don't really need to change your setup. So it gives you the ability to, again, go through and change more things you never really got to change before, that actually make a significant performance difference.
You see other little attention to detail too, like the way that the transponder here fits into the radio tray. I think stuff like that's awesome. That's stuff that racers think about.
Yeah, I mean, I actually carried this over from our original car because I wanted it to look nice and clean. Clean is the word I would use. Does it look clean? Yeah, it looks pretty clean. So basically this one, obviously it mounts in from the bottom, but I also made an adapter plate that allows you to take your micro transponder, the small one, out, and then there is an adapter that you can press it into, and it makes it look exactly the same. The only difference is now it's flush. One of the other cars has it on there, so you'll be able to maybe see that there. But it makes it look clean again, like that, because I think the A and B, the mount, that thing's kind of rickety looking, and it's not exactly the most attractive. So. And then another thing too is I made these recesses in the box. So a lot of people nowadays, they do a lot of like their own logos. You know what I mean? Like they have a decal guy, and these are I don't know what we're going to put in the kit. I think we're going to put a little bit different one in the kit, but you can buy these carbon fiber appearance ones separate. But for like a guy who does his own decals, he can have his name put on there and his paint job put on it. And as long as the decal maker knows the name, he'll be able to have his own paint job on his own decals, and he'll customize his own radio box. So now he can feel good about that. So it's just another small thing that a customer might enjoy.
And let's talk a little bit briefly then about the suspension geometry as well. How much different is it than the previous car?
This suspension is quite a bit different on this car because basically on the original car we had shorter arms. We had a really short arm in the front, and we found that when we went from one track to the next track, when the track level, the grip changed, it was much more difficult to find a balance in the setup. So we felt that the longer the suspension arm we could put on the front, the more stable it would be across the range of different track conditions. So when you go to a loose track or a high grip track, it just gave the car more stability overall, and the tuning window seemed to be a little bit larger, you know what I'm saying? And then on the rear, I actually tested this particular rear end 3 or 4 years ago. I won the Psycho Nitro Blast, and at that point, it's probably the only race I won in the last 5 years. And there were some good people there, and I actually had this exact rear end on my car at that time, but we just got done releasing another rear end that we tested. We're like, oh, this one's pretty good, and then we made another one, and then we went to a race, and we're like, wow, this one's even better. And then we're like, well, we can't make another new one because we just released one, so we have to wait till the next car. So that one we held on to. So we wanted to match them up. So when we made this one, we're like, well, probably should make the other one too. So it's just the carousel of, engineering. It's like development of your car, and it's like you don't always... You're at least not allowed to make new stuff every 6 months. You know what I'm saying? Like, well, we got to kind of include that in the cost of making a new car next time. So we actually had to hold on to that one. But basically, the arms are quite a bit longer, and it makes the suspension just more plush. It lands better. It jumps better. It's more easy over rough terrain. So I think in that respect, the customers that had our old car, they're going to be in heaven because the old car was hit or miss. Like some tracks it was really good, and some tracks it was really bad, and they had a hard time finding the right setup, and this one seems like it's going to be a lot easier there.
And we've got you've got Jorn Newman and Griffin Hanna both around the car here this week. Have they had much experience with the SRX8 before this race?
To be totally honest with you, no. I mean, we had sample cars probably in December of last year. We put one together, and we went to China to test drive it. And Jorn came over and he test drove it, and we built so we had a couple of them running there at the time. So we ran for like one day, and then it got rained out, so we didn't get to run much. But we knew the car was like it stayed together. So then we came home, and then once you have an actual car, you can start tweaking on all the things. We want this to fit a little bit better. We want this to look a little nicer. This needs to be a little bit more durable. So I was actually probably the only one that was able to run regularly because in Florida the weather is kind of nice, or at least nicer. In Europe, where Jorn was, he had a car, but it was snowing all the time. So this is probably the second time he's actually been able to run his car since December. And then Griffin, he got his car 2 weeks ago, and they were able to race it on a weekend. So to sit here and tell you that we've got like tons of race experience is not even close. I mean, this is a huge learning experience. This is the most we've been able to run, the most 4 cars at the same time. So we're learning every time we go out.
Well, it certainly looks good, and you guys seem you're off to a great start. Thanks so much, Billy.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thanks for taking the time to speak to me, and I wish you guys the best.
Absolutely, thank you. That's a look at the brand new Serpent SRX8 from, well, the man who knows it better than anybody else.